Okay, these are the season 4 power rankings. See how these work. And not just how good your team is, it's how likely you are to win the championship. So I take coach skill into account. I take how good you did last season and in the past seasons, how good the team is, and for like new coaches, I don't really know how good you are. And I think like coaching is probably more important than how good the team is. So if I don't know how good you are, you're probably going to be ranked lower on the list, and you'll just have to like prove yourself how it should be. So first, 26th ranked team, probably my favorite team of all time across any season. Um, I love this team. This is the league's team. Like, if this team wins a game, we all just have to go like fucking crazy because this is the best team I've ever seen. Pittsburgh. I love this team so much. It's so cool. They just have all tier ones except for Steelix and then Bob Ross, the Buffalo. I love this team, man. I love it so much. It's so cool. It's get like this team. You look at it on the roster page, you're like, oh, this team's dog shit. It's just all tier ones. But when you actually like go through the team, I could see this team making playoffs. Like I actually could. I actually can see a world where this team makes playoffs. And if it does, holy shit! Like it's gonna be the most epic thing ever. If this team wins the championship, I'll lose my fucking mind. But 26 Pittsburgh, 25 is the Detroit Lions. Um, Hayden's getting better at drafting. He is. He's getting a bit better at drafting. You can see he's kind of starting to put his team together now. But there are a few Pokemon on this team that are like very, very good. They just don't go necessarily well together. Like Entei and Victini, for example. Um, Both fire types do very similar things, like physical wall breakers. Iron Thorns and Belly Bolt probably don't necessarily go that well together. Brute Bonnet and Toadscruel, like they're fine, but they could probably be different things. There's a good defensive core for this one, better than he's ever had with Cofagrigus, Brute Bonnet, and Skarmory. Pretty decent. Sizzle and Skarmory are another one. I think that pairing's fine, right? Because you got Skarmory for defensive, defensive, and that fully opens up Sizzle to just be like fully offensive, like Swords Dance, Bullet Punch, just do its thing. But there are a few Pokemon I think are very similar, and if they were just swapped out for like just to patch up some holes that like the team's missing, I think the team would be a lot better. But the team was 0-5 last season, Man of the Year. If anyone's going to make playoffs, I want it to be Pittsburgh and Detroit. These are the two teams that I really want to make playoffs more than anyone. So I really hope that happens. 24 is Arizona. So I don't know how good this coach is. Not a clue. I have no idea how good this coach is. And the team's interesting. It has like no defensive Pokemon really. Like you got things like Muck, who's like a bulky offense. The thing is, you got like Dragonite and Baxcalibur. They're pretty like you look at this on paper and you got to try and deal with both. That's very scary. Dragonite might have to come like defensive a lot, which is not really what you want to do with Dragonite. But it's really like the only Pokemon that can just reliably be defensive on this entire team. The hazards, there's not that many, but it does have Glamora, so it's probably like if you weren't going to have that many hazard setters and you'd only have a few, you'd want Glamora on the team. Pretty consistent with that, but yeah, no defensive Pokemon on the entire team is kind of rough. Overall, the team has like decent speed. Like the whole thing is like around like 100 to like 80. There's a few higher, a few lower, and it has webs, which that's kind of the speed where now when webs are down, those Pokemon start to come like dangerous now. So that's kind of interesting. We'll see how it goes. I think this team is going to be very, very similar to Ninja's team last season, where the individual Pokemon pretty good all together with no defensive Pokemon, like no real switch-ins. It's going to be very hard to use. This one does have sticky webs, which can kind of like give it a little more like advantage in that way, but I think it's going to be very, very hard to use. And with a new coach that I don't know how good it is, I have to put this team at 24. Then 23 is Cincinnati. Again, have no idea how good this coach is. No idea. There are a few Pokemon on this team where I don't know if they necessarily go well together, just like with Detroit. So they have Azelf and Espathra are really their only main offensive Pokemon. Like they're their main win conditions, and they're kind of the same, which is like a pretty big problem, I think. The team defensively though is pretty damn good. So like Tangrowth, Weezing or Galarian Weezing, Seismitoad, Mandibuzz, Moltres, pretty damn good. Regieleki, it's fast, it's there. I don't know if it's really a win condition. It's just nice revenge killer, I guess. Chestnut can be like some belly drum. I don't know if it gets Trailblazed. If it does, that's pretty cool. The other thing is Moltres. What I would do is I would probably go to like Detroit and then try and get Entei or Victini and then try and give them Moltres. That's what I would do. Gives them another like nice defensive Pokemon, so now they would have either Entei or Victini, and their other secondary fire wouldn't just be like the same physical wall breaker thing. They would have like a more defensive one. Because Mandibuzz kind of just does everything Moltres does. So you don't really need both. And if you were to get like Entei or Victini, probably most likely Entei because of the points. I think Entei's around 12. This team might become a little more well-rounded and it'll give you like another good offensive threat. But for now, I had to put this team at 23. 22 is Minnesota. So Minnesota, I think this is a pretty fun team. Problem with this team is it has very good weather abusers like Dracozolt and Excadrill. Although it doesn't have like a Sansa, which is like the weird thing. So it's going to have to manually set up sand, which can be done. I actually think, honestly, I do think that sand teams are better when you don't have like a sand setter. Because at the end of the day, sand's not that hard to get up. It's really not. And maybe the person you're playing against kind of underestimates the threat of your sand abuser like Excadrill or like Dracozolt because you don't have a sand setter. Like, oh, he doesn't have Tyranitar or he powered on, so like, you can catch them by surprise. And when you're catching someone by surprise when you have a fucking Dracozolt or Excadrill, it can kind of get out of hand. So maybe they don't prep for it as hard and you catch them by surprise. You also have Victory Bell, who, if you get up Sun, could be interesting. You just have dumb Manatan. It's like a dumb Manatan Flare Blitz. If you get up Sun with something else, could be crazy. But the fact that you have to manually set it up is still a disadvantage, I think. I think it is. You have Webs, which is cool. You have Spin with the Excadrill. It's just hard to use, right? I think the element of catching someone by surprise is cool, but it's also very hard to use. I don't know how good this coach is. I don't know if they would be able to like utilize that properly. It's kind of funny that this team kind of re-signed a lot of Pokemon that they had before, where Honix kind of got fired by the organization, and then he Jappy comes in and kind of drafts some of the same shit like the Cresselia and everything. Excadrill, which they had in like season 1 and 2. That's kind of funny, but yeah, defensively not the best defensive call. Like you have Cresselia and like Orthworm, and then that's sort of it. Like your Blastoise is there, which is cool, but like Shell Smash Blastoise is just good. You're like Pokemon that can kind of come in randomly for like one game and be defensive, like with Buzzwole, Drapion, Blastoise, and then when you have like fucking Cresselia, it's just like a rock. Maybe that's all you need. Maybe you'll be fine. But like, if you were gonna have like one Pokemon that's like your main defensive thing, like Cresselia, Toxapex, like they're the ones you'd pick anyway. So they might be okay. I think this team has a low floor. It's the problem though. But I do see the ceiling. There's potential. I think this team can win, can make playoffs, if they can figure out how to consistently get Excadrill, Dracozolt, and Victory Bell to work. Then it's going to go wild. Like, imagine if they got stand up, the opponent didn't really prep for it, and then all of a sudden you got the Shed Towel into Dracozolt. It's kind of just like an instant win. So we'll see. 21 Indianapolis. I think this team is interesting. So I really like the pair with Quagsire and then Rotom. I really like that. But then that's really all there is for your defensive threats. You have Salamence, who can be... I really like defensive Salamence. But you don't want to force Salamence into being defensive, right? And you look at this team, and you look at the win conditions. There aren't really that many good win conditions. Salamence is really the only one. There's a lot of really good, like, Wall Breaker, like, Toxtricity. I think it can tear a Boom Burst now, which is kind of crazy. Sarrowledge, which is interesting. I've been looking at it. It's sort of a win condition, but you do really need a good matchup for that. Cobalion can, and so can Slitherwing, but you do need the matchup because they're not like the fastest. So Salamence just comes in Dragon Dances. So you're really relying on like Quagsire and Rotom to like hold the entire team together. But like low kicks, which is cool. That can like be a good revenge killer and like stop yourself getting swept as well. But I think in order for this team to make the playoffs, I think Salamence really has to have like an MVP season, MVP caliber season, and you need Sarrowledge to step up big. Like Sarrowledge also has to have like if Sarrowledge can pull out an MVP caliber season, actually this is the most important. It's not Salamence, because Salamence is going to be there anyway. If you can figure out Sarrowledge, figure out for him a way to become like a consistent win condition, then this team will be scary. But I think it's just missing that consistent secondary win condition outside of Salamence. 20, I have Rampart as Lon. One of my favorite people in the league. I love Lon. One of my favorite people. But the thing with his team is it's very similar to how it has been every season, where the defense just isn't quite there. And it's just missing it. Like Incineroar can be defensive, it's cool, but it doesn't have recovery. It needs like a lot of help. Incineroar is a really good Pokemon when you have your trio, your defensive core trio, and then Incineroar is just there to be like the fourth member, like just the side. He's a side hoe for your defensive core. You have Palossand, which isolates defensive, but is like a 6-point Pokemon, and then you have Wartortle. They're really the only defensive Pokemon. You have Pokemon like Celesteela and Glastrier, Tapu Bulu maybe, that can kind of come in as defensive Pokemon for like the right matchups and stuff. But you don't want to be doing that consistently, and you really want to be using Tapu Bulu as like the wall breaker along with Glastrier. That'll just open up Zeraora and like Gengar, and then Celesteela to do like some Autotomize or Media Beam sets or whatever. And the other thing is like win conditions on this team. I think it's good. I think they're good now. Greninja can do Swords Dance. Gengar's good. Zeraora's one of my favorite Pokemon in draft. I love it. I think it's like really underrated. If you learn to use, like, I'm not gonna say what's that. I'll DM him the set so no one knows, but I love Zeraora. Celesteela, one of my favorite Pokemon. Hasn't shit, like absolutely terrible in this like whole league so far. It's been like probably like one of the worst performing Pokemon, and it got stolen. So he's paying more for a Pokemon that hasn't performed at all. If Lon unlocks Celesteela, that would be pretty cool to see. But I think Lon can definitely make playoffs. I think Glastrier has to perform as well as it did before. And I think Celesteela and Zeraora are kind of just going to have to carry. They're going to have to carry. The defense is going to get worn down way too quick. You really need things like Glastrier and Tapu Bulu to just break teams as quick as you can, and then just get Gengar, Zeraora, Celesteela to just win as fast as you can. Because the longer the battle goes, the more this team's just going to eat shit. So break stuff as quick as you can, and then just win as quick as you can. 19's Carolina. This team is fun. This is a fun team. Has like dual weather, which is pretty cool. Sort of similar to the other one we're talking about, the one that has the Slow Kings with the Victory Bell and the Drake. So this one has the setters. This one has the Tyranitar. It has the Torkoal. Its defense is interesting. So it has like Slowbro, Gastrodon, and like a Torkoal defensive core. Maybe Venusaur too, but I think Venusaur's probably better for Sun. So it's weird because like you really need to bring Torkoal almost every game to help Gastrodon or Slowbro. So that means if you are bringing the Sand team with like Tyranitar, Dracovish, Torkoal's going to get in the way. So you really have to like play around that perfectly, which is going to be a bit annoying. Kleavor's cool because you get the rocks and stuff. But outside of weather, this team's going to struggle a lot because Dracovish is the key to this team. Like, it will go off because it's just Dracovish. I mean, it'll go crazy in the sand, but without the sand, if you look at his team, the wind conditions aren't really there. And like Venusaur could, but then you need sun. This is very reliant on weather, which is like kind of obvious because you're a double weather team, but you kind of forced to almost bring Torkoal every time, which will kind of get in the way of like your game plan. Like you're going to be sand this game or sun this game. You're either sun this game or you're both sun and sand. I don't think you can ever just bring sand unless Torkoal has a horrendous matchup, but then you just might be in trouble anyway. So this will be interesting. I don't know how good Guardian is. Maybe this team's ranked a little bit too high, but I think it's just a fun team. I think it's a fun team and it has potential. I think it has a really, really low floor, but the ceiling can be there. But it's interesting. Maybe it's ranked a little too high. You can all let me know, but we're going 19th now. 18, this is a big one. So this was the team that I had ranked in the top 5 pretty much all throughout last season, and they just kind of kept losing. He had the drunken incident where he passed out on the sidewalk, got a forfeit, and really that was the determining factor of him missing playoffs, which is hilarious. This team has a lot of offensive threats, but like zero defense, just zero defense, and I'm not a fan of that. I think if you just don't have defensive Pokemon and you're just straight offense, I don't really know if you're gonna win a championship. It's fucking tough. It's tough. Like against an average player, sure you can just overwhelm them, but like against a player who knows how to beat one-dimensional teams, it's gonna be fucking tough. It is. Like I think that's why the Houston and Seattle, they were some of the best teams. You look at them on paper, they were just so scary good. But Houston didn't make playoffs, and then Seattle was almost like, it was their year, but they still didn't win the championship. It was close, they almost got there, but in the end, I really do think having like a one-dimensional team, even if that one-dimensional team is like fucking amazing at what it does, all you have to do is come up against one person that knows how to exploit it, and you got nothing you can do about it. You just have to sit there and lose. This one, it just has like no defense. And like you have Annihilate, which is like a pivot Pokemon. I don't know, I haven't used Annihilate before. I don't really know how to use it, but I would assume it kind of works better on like balanced teams. I would think. Because when you're stuck, because this team wants to 1v1 things, right? That's how offensive teams work. They just want to 1v1 shit. When you're in a spot where you can't 1v1 something and you have to swap out, you don't really have anything to swap into. And that's probably because the Pokemon's like super offensive and faster. Going into Annihilate to take a shit ton of damage from an offensive Pokemon, probably not great. So, I don't know, this team's going to be hard to use. I think it's very similar to Ninja's team again last season. I think it's a little bit easier to use, but I think he might struggle. And hopefully his rehab went well. He's no longer an alcoholic, but he did kind of miss like early round of the draft because he was passed out in like a Walmart parking lot, so we'll see what happens. 17, Kansas. This was a team that I really liked last season. They just had the toughest schedule in the entire league. They still have the trick room kind of sticky web combo, which I think was really good. I don't think they fully mastered that and how to utilize like the mind games of that. They also have screens this time. They also couldn't find a way to get rid of Kingdra, which again is just sitting there taking up 11 points on the roster. It's really doing nothing. And it'll be cool if they were able to get rid of it still somehow. I think Kingdra's the weakness on this team. There was another one I was looking at, like, you could probably swap this for something else. I think it was Meteor. It's like, the defense on this team isn't great either. You have, like, Runerigus, who's just kind of there as, like, your main defensive Pokemon. And you got, like, Necrozama and, like, Ursaluna, who can, like, pair with it. But then, if you're using those two to, like, be defensive to, like, help Runerigus, then you're in a bit of trouble, because you don't have that many good win conditions outside of that. You got Iron Moth, who's, like, a pretty good breaker. Masquerada, I used before, it's really fun. You get some surprising shit with it, but relying on that to consistently be, like, the win condition is tough. It doesn't get that good setup, and then once you set up, if you're Protean, you turn into, like, I think it's like Hone Claws. I don't think it gets Swords Dance, but it's tough. I think if Kingdra and, like, Minior, like, swapped out for, like, defensive Pokemon that could help Runerigus, then I think the team will be a lot better. The other weakness of this team is you get destroyed by water types. Your only water resistance, I think, is Kingdra and Masquerada. Masquerada doesn't really want to take any hit, really. And then it's just Kingdra. And if you have to bring Kingdra, which is, like, big Pokemon that's just taking up all your points because it's your only real water resist, that hurts. That's going to feel bad. So, but I do have the high end of this team, though, I think is really good. Like, I think having webs and a strong team for webs, and then a Trick Room team with a really good, like, opportunity to use Trick Room with, like, the Ursaluna, it's gonna be hard to use. That's a very high skill ceiling kind of, like, strategy, but I think it can be good. Ursaluna is just a fucking monster, and I think Necrozama is probably top 10 Pokemon in draft. I do. I think it is. I think it's just slightly worse than Mew, and I think Mew's the best by far. I think it's better than Power, everything. Mew's fucking insane in Draft League. And if you're, like, a slightly worse version of the best Pokemon ever, then it's pretty good. So I think in order for you to win the championship, I really think you need to get rid of Minior and Kingdra and just get more defense. Because if you rely on Ursaluna and Necrozama to be defensive, which they are pretty good defensively, they're also your best offensive Pokemon. So this is kind of similar to, like, the Salamence thing we were talking about before. If you have to rely on that to be defensive, you're taking away your team's, like, key offensive piece. So I really think you should try and find a way to, like, get Kingdra off the team, get Minior off the team. Like, Minior's fine. You just don't need it. You just don't need it. Next, Las Vegas. So this is an interesting one. This was a team that I was a little bit low on, kind of throughout the whole season, even though they were doing really well, and everyone's like, how can you have this team there? They're 4-0 right now, 4-1 right now. It's like, yeah, but, like, their schedule's been kind of easy, and I'm not, like, fully convinced about their wins from how I've, like, been watching them play. But I think the team has gotten a little better. So I think this is probably, like, if I had to rank coaches, I think he did really well. This is his first Draft League ever. I don't think he even heard of Draft League before he joined. And, like, he started clicking at the end. Like, he started using Suicune properly. He started using Landorus better. I think his only problem was, like, he kind of threw his win conditions out too early and let him took unnecessary damage, and it kind of resulted in him losing at the end. Also, he had like a lot of close games where he should have just dominated, but he didn't for that same reason as well. But the team's interesting. I like his defensive core with Rotom Heat, Suicune, and Amoonguss. I think that's pretty damn good. You have like Landorus and Crocodile who can come defensive in the right matchup. And you can pretty easily do that because you have Landorus and Crocodile together. Like one of them can easily be defensive and the other can be offensive. Lucario, who I think I don't know about now, but like back in the day, in like the Z move era and shit, I truly did believe that Lucario was the best Pokemon in Draft League. Like the best. It was the best Pokemon. One of the hardest Pokemon to use. Like no one could really get like its max potential out. But I do think Lucario's now, if you use it to its like max potential, is a top 10 Pokemon in Draft League. But we'll see. We'll see how he uses it. It's very fucking hard to use. A lot harder now because of all the power creep and all like the faster Pokemon. So we'll see. I haven't used it in a long time, but I remember just like last gen or the gen before, whenever the Dragon Ball one came out, like there were so many Pokemon that came out that just like counter Lucario. So we'll see. But I think the key for this team is the coaching. I think if he can learn to protect his win conditions and like save him for the end and then like really just sweep his team, then I think this team can win the championship. But he has to prove to me that he can do that first. 15, Denver. So this is the team where I'm giving a lot of respect to the coach. Denver, I think if we look at it on paper, it's probably the 25th, 24th best roster. Just for the same reason it was 26th, or 20th, which was last season or something. It's just the roster overall isn't as powerful because this is why I respect this team. He doesn't draft to win, he drafts to have fun. He just picks the Pokemon he likes. He doesn't give a fuck if they're tier 18 or tier 5. And then he just tries to win after that, which is cool. I respect the fuck out of that. I think that's like the best way to do it. Like you just have fun doing whatever you want and like who gives a shit. We did that last season. He was ranked last and then he goes 5-0 with that team. In the end, he did get eliminated from playoffs in the second round, I believe. But that was an insane performance. Like Zone is fucking good. Like he is legit. So I just kind of went for the middle, right? I think the team's kind of ranked near the bottom. I think he's probably one of the top coaches, so I just smacked him in the middle. I think he would agree with that, and then we'll just see what happens. Like if he can do it again and he goes like 5-0, like fucking hell, dude, this dude's a beast. So we'll see how he goes. I hope he does well. This is also one of my favorite teams. I think my favorite teams are like Pittsburgh, Denver, and I really like the dual weather team because I think it's interesting, but we'll see. Really like Denver. 20 or 14, New York. So this was a team that did pretty good last season. They're really good. I ranked them pretty high, even though it was a new coach, and they kind of stepped up and they did well. But so this is where the rankings get tough, and this is where like a lot of the teams you can like interchange them. From like honestly, from 14 to maybe like 7. You can really put these in any order and it's like fine. But so this team here, the defense is what I'm kind of worried about. Like offensively, this team is pretty damn good. Like your Katana, Galarian Darmanitan, Nidoking, like this combo with Dragapult last season was insane. But now Dragapult's gone, you got this trio, but you added in Chandelure, which obviously isn't as good, but it can still kind of do the same thing. The problem with this team is the speed isn't insanely good. You're really gonna have to bring like 1 or 2 choice scarf Pokemon like almost every single week, and the wing conditions aren't really there. This is why it's ranked low. Like the defense isn't quite there. The offense it's scary on paper, but in reality, your only win condition is like putting a scarf on something. Like you can do sword stance, sucker punch, buy shot, which is like effective, but at the same time, it's kind of easy to play around. It's not consistent, right? Because they just go for like a will-o-wisp or something. As long as they prep for the fact that you might sword stance, sucker punch, it's gonna be difficult to find a win condition unless you scarf something. Like you got Nidoqueen, Katana, Darmanitan, Chandelure. You do have webs. I think Araquanid gets webs, and that's going to be like another key thing. If you can get webs up and you get all these kind of like averagely sped Pokemon that hit really hard, if you get them outspeeding everything, then it's going to get scary. I love Volcanion. Everyone knows I fucking despise legendary Pokemon, but Volcanion is kind of an exception, and it's kind of like my favorite legendary. It's really cool. I love it. Yeah, so defensively, you got, I don't know, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that dude, the rock guy. We all know the big rock guy who got recovered, the new dude. He's cool. He's really good. Doesn't really have anything to like support him. He's just kind of there on his own, and like being a rock type, he's going to struggle. So I think this team might be a little worse than it's ranked. I think it being very hard to use. But he was a new coach, his first draft league. I believe he finished top 4 and got a first round bye, so I have to respect that, and I'm putting him at 14. 13 is Green Bay. I think this team's good. I think this team's pretty damn good. I like the defense. Tapu Fini, Skeledirge, and Shaman. Very good defensive core. You got things like Great Tusk in there that can come in and be defensive if it needs to. Good win conditions. With the Lilligant is very, very good. Thunderous is very good. Tapu Fini is good win condition. King Gambit, he just won the MVP. He just won the MVP. It's sort of like Bisharp, where I think the Sucker Punch is kind of a little easier to play around. Except this thing is a lot difficult. It's more bulkier, and its ability is kind of giving it like almost a free sword stance, kind of like a little bit. So it doesn't have to use the turn to sword stance. It can just kind of come in Sucker Punch. Then he has Ditto, which I really, really like Ditto. Just pretty much stops people setting up on you. The problem with this team, and Coolfish too. Still, Coolfish is really, really good on this team. The problem is Typhlosion, which if your problem is your 4-point Pokemon, that's pretty good. I just don't know why Typhlosion's here, because you already have Skeledirge, right? So I don't like if like Fire is really, really good against teams, which going through all their teams and their weaknesses, it's not. It's not like a common weaknesses that teams have. Typhlosion is just kind of there. So like, maybe you want to bring defensive Skeledirge, but offensive Fire is really good. You bring both. I don't really see a world where you ever bring Typhlosion over Skeledirge. You either bring both or just Skeledirge. So I don't know. I would try and maybe swap Typhlosion for something else, like something else that can just be like used, I guess. But overall, I think this team's good. I think it's a good team. This was a replacement coach last season who came in with took over an 0-1 team, lost the first 2, and then won the next 2. Almost made playoffs, kind of surged at the end, had some big wins too at the end. I think he beat like the 5th ranked team in his last game to almost make playoffs. So it'll be cool to see what this team does. I think it's good. I think it's well balanced. It has the win conditions, it has the defense. Everything's there. How this team wins is up to the coach. I think the only thing that could stop this team from winning is like the coach like takes heroin or something before the games, which is possible. Just the boy is kind of unhinged. He's very passionate. He seems like he has a very addictive personality. Like once he gets hooked on something, he's all in. If he accidentally comes across like a drug and he gets like hooked on it, his season could fall apart, and I think that's a higher chance. So I'm gonna put him at 13. 12 is Dallas. So a new team at 12, which is pretty good. So Dallas, I really like. I think Dallas has the best defensive core in the league. And there are some teams out there that you think of, oh, this is the defensive team. I think Dallas has a better defensive core than them. Like, Deoxys defense, Zapdos, Milotic, and Clodsire. Like, that's so fucking good. Like, that's really good. That's the best defensive core in the league by far. I think it really is. The problem with this team is the offense. Mousehold, cool. Like, it's decent, but kind of gets shit on by a rookie helmet. But we saw that the league just doesn't know how to use that, and that's why Yoshifu went off. But Wobbuffet, Sceptile, not a big fan of Wobbuffet. Sceptile's fun. Sceptile's a fun Pokemon. I just don't know if it's going to be consistently dominant. Magnezone, people hype it up a lot. I think it's fine. I think it can Terra to get rid of its quad weakness, which will be interesting to see what it does with that. But its move pool's ass, and I don't know if it can consistently like dominate. Machamp is one of my favorite low tier Pokemon. I'll be honest. I think Machamp is actually really, really, really good. I think, and I'm the one who drafted Conkeldurr, and I said I would never ever draft Conkeldurr ever in my life because I just get Machamp for 6. Like, Conkeldurr's like 13, Machamp is 6. Machamp is basically a Conkeldurr. It is not that the tier gap should not be that big. The only difference is like Drain Punch and like Defog. That's really the only difference between the two. I think Machamp is really, really good. And then he has Aggron. I think Aggron is probably the best Pokemon for Terra. 3-point, insanely defensive. It's insanely fucking hard. Its weakness is that it's 4 times weak to ground, 4 times weak to fighting. You can change all that with Terra. I think Aggron is actually the best Terra Pokemon. And then he has Hydreigon. So Hydreigon's the big one. I think Hydreigon is the second best Pokemon in draft. I think it's better than Shampoo. The only thing better than I think is Mew. I think it's the best Dragon type by far. It's the best Dark type by far. It literally does everything. Choice Band, Choice Specs, Choice Scarf. Be all 3 of those. Be Nasty Plot, it can be Dragon Dance. It has Defog, it has U-Turn, it has Stealth Rocks now. It's insane. It's so fucking good. I tried to get it. He stole it off me. I'm kind of wishing I stole it back, but it's really, really good. So after all that, Hydreigon is like the big consistent offensive threat. Outside of that, I really think his season is going to rely on Aggron and Machamp. If you can use those properly, but the thing is they're also very similar in what they do. They're just the slow offensive wall breaker. If you can use them very well to like a low tier MVP caliber thing, his defense is going to be good enough. Hydreigon's always going to be consistent. It's up for one of them to step up like really big, like almost MVP caliber season from one of those two, or even just both combined. Then this team can win a championship. Also, don't know how good this coach is, so we'll see. 11, Chicago. So this team surged so fucking hard at the end of the season. 0-2, kind of got, to be honest, kind of got shit on the first 2 games. Then just came in like hard, like he was like a whole different person. He learned how to use his team. It was his first draft league ever. He just went from like, oh, I'm new, I don't know how to play this at all, to like week 3, bang, one of the best coaches in the league. Like, he was insane. Like, the turnaround was wild. I think this team really, really damn good. The Pokemon that I think could rival Aggron as the best Terra Pokemon is the Pokemon that he has, and that is Hisuian Avalok. Really, really good. Has Recover, Rapid Spin. Shit typing, absolute dog shit typing, but you can get rid of that with Terra. I really like his defense with Slowking, Tinglu, Arcanine, Jellicent. Really, really good defense. Offensively, really good too. Kyurem, Thundurus. His defense is good enough that he can bring like offensive things, like an offensive Slowking, Nasty Plot, offensive Arcanine, offensive Avalok. He has Espeon there, which is really good. He has Mienshao, which is just such a consistent Pokemon. He has like a little regenerator core. And then Slurpuff, which is like sneaky. Slurpuff's sneaky. So I really like this team. I think it's very well balanced. I think it's consistent. I think it has a high floor. I think it has a very high floor. I think you can win a championship pretty easily. I think it's the determining factor will be the coach. If he can continue that surge, he can continue playing like he did weeks 3, 4, and 5. This is a scary team, man. Number 10. Number 10 is Buffalo. So this team, this was the team that I was very low on pretty much throughout the entire season last year, because I didn't think the team was that good, because it was so defensive, but all it could really rely on was Spectre and Galarian Zapdos for the offense. Very fucking good offensive Pokemon, but that was it. Like, that was all there was for offense. The rest was just defense. At the back half of the season, though, the last 2 games, he finally did what I said he had to do, and that was he utilized his defensive Pokemon offensively. And he started bringing Trick Room, Uniclus, and it fucking dominated. It tore people's arseholes out. This season, what he did? He went and got Stack Attacker. So now his Trick Room's going to be an actual threat. He swapped Skarmory for Togekiss. That I think is going to be better, because Togekiss can be Choice Scarf, it can flinch people down, it can be offensive. He can now more consistently use his defensive Pokemon offensively. I think his team's gotten better. The big problem, though, the problem that I see with this team is he lost what I think was the core of his team, the glue that kind of held everything together, and that is what's his name? The Poison Ground dude. Fuck, the Poison Ground new guy has Unaware, Water Absorb, you know who it is. Clodsar. Because, really, all you had to do before was set up on this team and everything just died. And Clodsar's Unaware was like the thing that kind of stopped that. Now he doesn't have that. His offensive pieces, again, require a lot of setup. Outside of that, it's still really just Spectre and then Zapdos. I do think this is better. The coach, I have to give him more respect. He made the championship season 1. He made the top 4 last season. I think he either missed playoffs or just scraped in season 2. Like, the coach is good. He's good. He's consistent. He's always around. I have to give him more respect, and I think this team's better. So I'm gonna go top 10 for Buffalo. They pushed into the top 10. Number 9. I think number 9 is going to be the hot take. So last year I had a hot take with Cleveland being ranked quite low. Everyone thought I was a little crazy. I started to believe I was a little crazy, but maybe I was right. Because they did. I think they just made playoffs. I think it came down to like differential, but they were kind of in there by like a few spots, and then they got eliminated round 1. So maybe I was onto something, but maybe I was still a little too low, even in like hindsight. But this is kind of my hot take. I think it's this team. I could just be completely wrong. I could just be revealing the wrong team. Oh, that's the wrong team. Okay, never mind. Maybe they're at 8. So Tennessee, I really like this fucking team. I really like this team. It has my favorite Pokemon of all time, Gyarados. It has really good win conditions. It has the Tapu Koko Holucha combo, which we all know I fucking hate. I think it's cringe. I think like any terrain thing with Holucha is such a cringe strategy. But at the end of the day, it is good. It is consistent. Even if I hate it, I have to kind of respect it. Latios is really, really good. I'll be honest, I think Gyarados is probably the best mid-tier Pokemon. It's so fucking good. Like, it's just good. Like, it's one of the best Dragon Dance Pokemon. I don't give a shit what people say about, oh, it has a 4 times electric weakness. Who gives a shit? Every Dragon type is a 4 times ice weakness. Like, it's so good. Like, you don't switch into. Now it has Power Whip. It's just insane. Like, it just Dragon Dances and it just wins. Like, Gyarados is really, really fucking good. It has Arctivish, which I thought, why do you have that? But then I realized that Slowbro gets Snowscape, so he has that going for it as well. The defense is okay. It's pretty good. Like, you got Slowbro and Dunsparce. That's the core. They're your defensive core. It's probably going to be coming to every game. They work very well together. So that's good. You have Cradilly and Guja, who are okay defensively. We know Cradilly did very, very good last season. Hopefully he can do the same thing. I think the problem with Craig Dilly is I don't think its success is repeatable. It did a lot of clutch things. It didn't really dominate. It just did clutch things. Like it survived on like a few HP and then got a crit and like killed a Dragonite, which otherwise would have won the game. Like they're the kind of things that when it happens, you gotta fucking hype it up, and it's pretty cool. And like we give like a lot of respect to that in like the rankings and shit, like the award ceremony and everything. Like you get a crit on a Pokemon that kind of won you the game. Like we hype the shit out of that. That's cool, but it's not very repeatable. Like it's all luck really. But we'll see if he can use it well again. I hope he does, because that's kind of hype. But then he has Wish, which can kind of help Grujo be defensive and help out a bit too. Overall, I think this is a pretty good team. If I had to swap something, if there was like a problem with it, I don't really know why Revavroom and Dreadnought are there. They're the two things I'm like, I think he drafted Revavroom just for Toxic Spikes. But if that was a better defensive Pokemon, I think it would be a lot better. Dreadnought, I don't know why it's there. I just straight up don't know why it's there. Because, okay, Shell Smash, cool. Just Dragon Dance with Gyarados. It's just better. It's just better. It's just better in every matchup. I just don't know why Dreadnought's there. Like if you swapped Revavroom for like a better Steel type, more defensive, and then you can swap Dreadnought for like another Toxic Spiker, like a low tier one. I think that would be better. That would make your team a lot better. And the other thing with Frost, he did pretty decent in season 1. Other than that, he's kind of been around like the middle of the table, I guess. So he can like step it up. And I think he has the team to do it. I think this is his best team by a lot. So it'll be interesting, and I hope he does good. So number 8, I think this is the one where I had the hot take on, where this team is kind of like maybe lower than you were expecting, but Seattle. So Seattle was kind of like the number 1 team through like the whole back half of the season, or going into playoffs. They were the team where everyone was really picking to win. Like, I think it was Zone was the only person who picked Philadelphia Beedrills to win the championship. And he even said the reason he's picking them is because all season, all throughout the playoffs, it's just been upset after upset after upset, kind of saying that Seattle's the better team. They are the best team, but they're probably going to lose just because they are the best team, and there's been upset after upset, and that's kind of what happened. So this team was insane. Polly, insane. One of the best coaches in the league. Top 3. I don't think you can argue that he's not top 3. He is top 3. But this team, he really just said, give me all the Steel types. Give me Therathorn, Corviknight, Melmetal. Just give me all the Steel types. I think he lost a lot of power with like the Rain kind of stuff, and then like the Lele Holucha stuff, which I think was kind of like crazy that he even was able to get that, which, you know, good for him. But I think the thing is though, like, I will say for a team that's kind of just like doubled up on like a lot of typings, like 3 steals, and his defensive core is really just his 3 steel types, which is kind of interesting. But I was looking at like the resistances and shit, and like what weaknesses this team has with like the typings. It's surprisingly good for a defensive core that is just basically 3 steel types, which is kind of crazy. But there is a big, gigantic weakness to water. Fire. You do have Keldeo, Dragapult, Cyclizar. Like, Keldeo can easily take any fire hit once, maybe twice. Then after that, this team is looking like it might be in a lot of trouble. But I was a lot lower on this team. I think if Polly wasn't the coach, I think this team might be in around the 22, 21, maybe around there. Probably around 18ish. Probably around 18ish. I think, yeah, around there. I think this team does have holes that good players will abuse. However, I do think the Pokemon that he has are good enough that will bring the floor up quite a bit. And I think he's still going to have pretty easy wins against average to maybe below average coaches. But when it comes to winning the championship, which is kind of what these rankings are, I think he might struggle against the top coaches who are very good at prepping. They will find the weaknesses of his team and they will abuse them. But I mean, I know where Philly was. They were like 15, 16. They won the championship, so anything can happen. So number 7. So number 7 is Jacksonville. This team, I think, has gotten better. I think they made the top 4 at the end. So very good. Yoshifu though. So this was the team where I think people might expect it to be a little higher just for the fact that Yoshifu is on the team. And it can Swords Dance, it can Trailblaze now. And it's going to be pretty cool to see how it goes. He better make the most of it because, if I'm honest, it's probably going to be the last season it's around. But this team, I actually don't even know if it's better. Its defense was the weakness last season, and it got worse. His strength was his offense, and it was actually really, really good. I think it's probably balanced. It's probably breaks even, maybe better just for the Yoshifu buff, right? He has Garchomp now, which is a really good threat. He has Mamoswine, which Mamoswine's insane. Sort of like Darmanitan though. So it's like a 1-for-1 trade, I guess you could say. Garchomp's really, really good. Still has Zoroark. I think this team's probably a little better offensively. The defense though, the problem was that he had Heatran, Rotom Mo, which I think is good. Then he had Diancie. I said he's really missing like a third piece, and then Diancie's kind of like similar to what I said with Incineroar with Lon. Diancie's kind of like the fourth one you kind of want. And this team just kind of threw out Rotom and then just didn't really replace it with anything. So the only defensive Pokemon is just Heatran, and then it's Diancie. And we know we can use Diancie well, but the thing with Diancie is it doesn't switch in consistently very well. He was able to use it where he'd switch in, kind of get it set up, and then it would either break a big massive hole in the team with like its body press set, or we just end up winning, like sweeping. If he's in the position where he switches into Diancie but is then forced out again, he has like, what's he gonna switch into? Like he can switch into Heatran. Other than that, everything's gonna take a gigantic chunk, even if he goes into Heatran and like doesn't have reliable recovery. Neither does Diancie, so that's kind of the point. You can switch into things maybe once or twice, but then that's it. After that, everything on the team dies. He has just no recovery on defense, so it's going to be tough. I think that is going to be a huge factor when it comes to winning the championship. I think having a balanced team is very important. The offense is just so good. Like, the key to him winning is like Yoshifu, Garchomp, trying to replicate the success of like Diancie's like offensive like presence again, and just winning before your team gets too weakened. Like he has to kind of just step up with his offensive threats and just sweep. Like his games are gonna be like 10 turns. Like he's just gonna have 10-turn games, and he's just gonna have to try and win as quick as he can. But similar to Polly, it's just a very high floor. The offense is so good that has such a high floor, but it's gonna be hard to win a championship when you have to consistently beat the best players in the league. When you don't really have a defense, and you know that the game's just gonna be like all offense, it's gonna be tough. But he is such an improved coach. If he improves again, which is almost impossible. It's not impossible to improve again, but it is impossible to improve by the same leap. Prove as big as he did from the season before last to last season. If he improves that much again, like fuck, I don't want to verse him. Number 6 is San Francisco. New coach. I do know that he's good at Draft League. Don't know how good, I just know he's good. So his team is interesting. So I thought it was a little similar to Washington, who also haven't been revealed yet. I won't say where they are. But the thing with this team, the defense is very good. So Goldango, Laddie, Wochan, Swampert, the defense is there. The thing is though, his defensive core doesn't always want to be defensive. Like Latios, Goldango, they don't always want to be defensive. And it's kind of forced to use them defensively, I think. He does have screens though, which in some matchups can help. He just puts up screens and they can be both in those kind of scenarios. They're taking half the damage, you don't need to invest a lot in defense. But the problem with this team, I thought, was the win conditions. So I think Quackable is fine. With screens, I think it becomes good though. So I think that's a good win condition. I think Latias can be a good win condition. Outside of that, he has Sandslash in the snow, which I think is fine. I don't think it's crazy, but it's there. It's a win condition. Outside of that, it's kind of it. He has a lot of good revenge killers in like Cinderace and stuff. He has good wall breakers with like Goldango, Cinderace again, good wall breaker. But we'll see how he goes with like, can this team consistently knock off the best teams? Yes, it can. That's why it's ranked so high. But are the odds high of him doing it? I don't know. We'll see. It's a very good team. The defensive core's there. The offense is still good. It just doesn't have enough win conditions to really dominate all the best teams. I don't know. 6 is still high. I'm giving him a lot of respect. I think the team's very good. But we'll see how it goes. I think this is a good team. Number 5 is Washington. So this team, I think it's got Mew, right? I think Mew's the best Pokemon in Draft League by like quite a bit. I think it kind of always will be. It just gets every move, every possible setup you can think of. If this has a good coach and it has a good team that's balanced, so you don't have to be offensive, you don't have to be defensive, you can just do whatever the fuck you want to make it. You just come up with the best set, you're not forced into anything. Like, if you have an offensive team and the best offensive set for Mew is a Dragon Dance one, you're kind of forced into defense because you don't have enough defense. Where with this team, I think he can kind of do whatever he wants. I think he can. The win conditions I really like. So that was the big difference between this team and the 49ers. I think Mew is just such a good win condition. I think Grimmsnarl is a very underrated win condition. Mainly because like bulk up, sucker punch and shit, and then they can also do whatever it wants with screens. I think he has Zygarde, which is a very good win condition. He has Poltergeist, very good win condition. Raikou possibly. You don't really ever see it sweeping, but like it can Calm Mind and it is fast, so it is there. He has Trick Room potential with Copper Raja, which is kind of crazy. Roserade's also decent with Trick Room. Not like super good, but it is decent. I think this team's just good. It's just solid, consistent. I think there's a lot of pressure on Vaporeon there. Because I heard him saying like, in the draft and like the general chat and shit, that his defense was really good. He doesn't have to worry about it. To me, the defense is a little bit worrying. Mew, very good. But then he has Vaporeon, also very good. And Hitmontop, fine. Copperaja, fine. Zygarde, fine, defensively. There's a lot of pressure on Vaporeon to kind of wish and then keep him alive. It's like when I look at defensive Pokemon, if you have a bunch of them that don't recover themselves, I question how good the team is defensively. But it does have wish. Like if Vaporeon wasn't there, I would say just straight up say this defense is just not good. But Vaporeon, very good wish Pokemon. I love Vaporeon, use it so many times. If he can use it to keep Hitmontop, Copperaja, and Zygarde alive, his team's going to be scary. Be very scary. Chatot, kind of pretty good for 2 points. Hit more, maybe real, I don't have any clue what it does. But I think this team's good. Good win conditions, as long as Vaporeon can keep stuff alive, the defense is going to be fine. There's Trick Room, Dragon Dance. In 2 Pokemon, it can really do whatever it wants. Has good hazards too. Pretty much has everything. So overall, good team. I know the coach is good. Don't know how good, but I know he's good. So we'll see. Number 4. So number 4, I have Houston. This is a pretty good team as well. So defensively, I really like this team. It has some really good defensive pieces like Clefable, Slowking, Stunfisk, Gorgeist, Iron Treads can be defensive too. Really good team. Offensively, just so many good win conditions. You have Infernape, Clefable, very good win condition with its Carmine, Cosmic Power shit. And Heligo, Slowking, and then Champel. They're very, very good win conditions. He was super hyped to use Furfro, so I think he's going to have something spicy with that. So I'm not going to doubt it too much. Spidops, I think it's only there for webs, which is pretty fucking good. It's scary. The team's fast. The team is so fast. The team's really, really good. I think this is probably a top 3 team, but it's not ranked in the top 3 because he had probably the best team I think I've ever seen last season. It was so good, but he still missed playoffs. So I think it's fair that I take that into account. Be like, okay, you have another really fucking good team, but if you want to be number 1, I'm gonna have to see it. Just prove to me that you can go off and prove to me that you're a top 3 team. I think that's fair. I think I think you should have made playoffs last season. I think you're really good. He's so fucking good. He's a really good coach. I know from my battle against him. I know a good coach when I see one, and to be honest, if I had taken that battle alone and kind of wiped away everything from the season and just go, okay, how good do I think he is based off that battle against me? I would put him number 1. From what I saw in that battle, I only won because I just had one of those games where I did everything right. No, to be honest, I don't really have those games often, but yeah, he's so fucking good. I know he is. He just has to show me. He just has to put it all together, and this would probably be a top 3 team by the end of the season. But for now, I have to put it in 4. Number 3 is Miami. So Miami, I think, very, very balanced team. I think the defensive core is really, really good. A Powdon, Toxapex, you're gonna have a very hard time killing those. Registeel is decent. Kind of can get worn down a little bit. And then Appleton, I think, is sneaky good as a defensive Pokemon when it can use Terra. I think it's very interesting, especially if I get rid of its 4 times weakness. I think it's gonna be really good. Has very good special breakers with Enamorus and Armarouge. Very good physical wall breakers with Palafin and Conkeldurr. It's gonna be very hard to deal with those. I think Cryogonal is going to be very interesting, especially with Terra. It's way bulkier than you think, special defensively, and then its defensive stats can be boosted. Freeze dry is always good. I think Cryogonal probably not good enough to just go straight out and just win games, but it's good enough to be annoying, and with Terra it would be interesting. Ambipom I think is just really good with Terra, or Choreo again, probably up there with Aggron and stuff. Would be one of the best Terra mons, because Revelation Dance is really, really cool. So I think this team overall, the floor for Miami is really, really, really high. I think it's really high. The win conditions though is they're not crazy. Enamorus can definitely be a very good win condition. It just requires a little bit of setup and good set building. Armarouge, it won low tier MVP before. If it has another good season, it can really go off. Palafin is just an absolute monster. Or Choreo is a good win condition. They're there. The win conditions are there. We'll just see how it comes together. But the top 3, I didn't realize this until after. The top 3 teams are the only coaches to have won a championship before, which I thought was cool. So my ME3 now, number 2 and number 1. So it's between the defending champions, Philadelphia, and the Cleveland Bidoof. Both these teams are really good. One of these teams, will say, knows how to use trades. Like he somehow, it felt like he was going all in on this season, and he was just trading everything away to just go crazy this season in the draft. But then somehow has like fucking a billion first round picks next season. So I don't know how the fuck he did it, but like Philadelphia were getting crazy off season, and then these two teams get the most hype by far. Cleveland with the Glasgow defending MVP, or a past MVP. The Sneasler Rillaboom combo, kind of crazy. So the number 2 team I gave to Philadelphia. So every time I see this dude play, he gets better and better. He came in to take over a team that was just straight up dog shit. Like, he was so bad. Like the lucky Ice Beam man. He really fucked up that draft. But he struggled early, came in kind of similar to Just the Boy. He kind of surged late, but he still just missed out on playoffs. Then he kind of came out and won a championship. And his team is really, really, really good. The problem with his team, I thought, maybe a little weak defensively. Maybe just a little bit. But overall, this is a really good team. The hazards are insane. The momentum is insane. I think the removal, I think this was the first team I covered, so I didn't write any notes for this. I'm just going all based off memory. But this team, it's really good. I think Tornadus, I was questioning it, how good it was like performing, and then it kind of went off in the championship game. So it kind of like proved that it does still deserve to be in tier 18, because I was considering dropping it like down a tier, and then it kind of went off. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll just keep it there. This is a really, really decent team. It has very good win conditions too. The problem I thought was the defense. So that's the big thing. Like Jirachi's fine, like as a defensive Pokemon, but it's sort of forced into defense on this team. Rotom is fine. Like, it's not the most consistent defensive Pokemon, but it's good. Like, we all know Rotom's good, but it's not a good defensive Pokemon when it's really just kind of by itself. Then we have the Knuckle Stack dude, who I think is probably pretty good with Eviolite. So we'll see how it all goes. See if you can like put the defense together and kind of make it work. But yeah, he's a really, really good coach. The team is very good. I think I want to see how he uses Moltres. I really want to see how he uses Moltres, but I guess assuming it's Samurott, just add to all the hazards he has. I'm pretty sure Fortress gets everything but webs. I think it gets rocks, toxic spikes, and normal spikes. This team's good. Primate on paper seems really, really good. Just the coverage is good. Eviolite now. The speed was the thing that was annoying. Like, I just couldn't bring it to games because the matchup just wasn't good enough last season. So we'll see if you can use that better than me. So I was getting like a lot of hype in the draft chat before it was drafted. Then he came in and took it. I think Houston did. He made a trade for it, so it was pretty cool. This is gonna be a tough team to beat. We know he knows how to use the Pokemon well. It's a scary team, but number one, the best team in the league, or the team that I think is most likely to win the championship, is Cleveland. So it's gonna be like a massive battle to see who the first team is to win to win 2 championships. I think the top 3 are most likely to win, and if any of them do, they're going to be the first team to win back-to-back championships. So this team, I think, is really, really good. Really, really good. Gliscor, we know Gliscor is insane. So he has 1 MVP, Gliscor. He has Season 1 MVP in Sui and Arcanine. 2 Pokemon that I think had the best seasons overall. So Arcanine's kind of wild. Sneasler paired with Rillaboom is insane. I think Rillaboom is a really, really, really good Pokemon. I think it's kind of underrated a little bit. It's just so hard to beat. Sneasler, Dire Claw's just kind of wild. I really wanted to get it. I think I tried to steal it from him, but it was like still protected. Also, the problem with this team, actually, no, the defense is actually good because Glasgow is insane. Dondozo is very good. Now, when I drafted this team in season 2 for someone who like dropped out, I gave him Milotic because I thought Milotic is a really good pair with Glasgow. Then I saw Dondozo here instead of now Milotic's gone. It's like, okay, that's cool, but like he doesn't have reliable recovery. Maybe the defense is going to be not as good. But then he has Scream Tail. It's like, oh, you can just wish it, he's fine. So the weird thing about this team I thought was like that he's gonna hate me for saying this, but like the Winkling or whatever it's called, the little pig dude. I don't really know why he's there because you got Dramper there. He's just kind of chilling there. But I know he loves that thing. He's gonna come up with some heat set for it and try and make it work. So I don't give a fuck. Use it. Do well with it. Metagross is good too. So Metagross good defensively when it has like wish support, and it does. I think this team's it's just really, really good. He knows how to use Drifloon very well too. Like he used Drifloon at like a tier 10 kind of level last season. It really it was effective on like every game he brought. Gliscor again. I think Gliscor is probably, it's easy top 5 in Draft League. I think it's way better than Landorus. I think I was kind of going for that like generations ago. I always thought Gliscor was just better than Landorus. And now everyone's kind of seeing it like, fuck yes. But Gliscor's insane. Gliscor's so good. I think if he gets another MVP caliber season out of Arcanine again, paired with the Rillaboom Sneasler combo, paired with the Gliscor, paired with like the defensive Dondozo and Screen Tail, I don't know how this team loses. I really don't. Like this team's fucking busted. Like I don't know. Like, because like I want to see this team versus Tennessee. I want to see Coco and Holucha versus Rillaboom and Sneasler. I might make that a thing. Should that be like the week 1 opening matchup? I think it should. I think we might do that for week 1. But Cleveland #1 team. So let me know what you think. I'm not going to edit this because I can't be fucked. But this is going for like an hour. What the fuck? So let me know what you think about this rankings. Let me know what you would change. If you think someone's like way underrated or way overrated, you let me know. But if you made it this far, thanks for watching.